Hey everyone, how you all doing today? It's been a while since I've done a video like this one, particularly espousing my particular views on specific socio-political and economic issues. Last time I did this, I believe I talked a little bit about rights, specifically what it is they entail, and I figure I'd go ahead and piggyback off of that and sort of give my general descriptions and ideas and sort of, I guess you might call it support for trans rights and trans issues in a sense. This will be, in fact, my video on that. So, yeah, I think I'd open up with the very simple one, is that trans women are women. But although trans women identify as women, some trans women identify as trans women and not necessarily purely woman. Now that we've gotten the shitstorm of conservatives out of the way here, I want to make this very clear. I've never really understood why it is that so many people are willing to sort of dismiss the identity of trans people. It doesn't make much sense to me. Um, Identity is very important to us, neurologically speaking. Not just on a behavior aspect, but on a physical, neurological level. You end up having issues in which you feel like you're attacked because the amount of neurochemical processes within the brain that will release in the exact same fashion, and those same chemicals will release in the exact same manner as if you were under attack physically if your identity is being like rejected or ridiculed or in any fashion or form. You're being persecuted in a deliberate fashion because of your, like, having legislation, having uh, issues of oh, what was it now? Well, just generally speaking, the whole thing about not accepting trans identity and trans issues is kind of a problem. Now, some people will try to do a chicken and the egg thing. Oh, which is it? Is it this? Is it that? It's very simple. Accept the fact that trans women are women, accept their identity, and move the fuck on. Alright? That's my particular position on that issue here. With regards to trans sports, it's a very simple matter. I trust the regulators to be able to do their job, so much so that I don't need to give a shit about trans women in women's sports. There is a bit of a suggestion, a bit of a debate that should happen about whether or not they have an unfair advantage or whether or not the right means of transitioning should be done, or what is the right means of transitioning for women's sports. These are all valid questions. I think they're very important to be asked here, and I think that the amount of trans women and trans men who are more than likely going to be going in either sports or whatever would have to be physically transitioning. You can't simply identify as a woman and be a part of women's sports, just like you can't physically identify as a man and just be a part of men's sports. Which, incidentally enough, this has always been a bit of a question I've always had to wonder. Why do conservatives constantly go on about women who are trans being in trans sports while giving absolutely no fucks whatsoever on the opposite side of the spectrum? I think the answer is pretty obvious there. They don't really care about the issue. It's a culture war issue. They want to whip people up in their frenzy and make this into a social-political thing, so that way people can go ahead and continue to just fight amongst one another without necessarily in any fashion, way, or form questioning the types of policies that are going to be put out there. I mean, well, why would you question someone who's like concerned with women, for example, who are concerned with the sanctity of women? Um, why would you question them on that and pay any attention to any kind of malfeasance that they're doing, such as trying to fuck you over in terms of workers' rights? So yeah, trans issues are fairly interesting to me as well, given the simple fact that they're not the same issues that I have to deal with. I've never had anyone question my male identity. I've never had anyone had to question whether or not I was actually physically who I am. And I've never had that issue of identifying male. I'm pretty much cis heteronormative male, but I do support trans issues. I am deeply disturbed about the fact that trans people keenly commit suicide on a regular basis, um, at a heightened rate, based on how much bigotry that they're having to deal with in society. I think that's a problem. I do think that, for the most part, when it comes down to it, my position is I fully support trans rights because trans rights are human rights. So yeah, not really much to say about this particular topic, primarily because one, I don't know that much, but two, what I do know is sort of giving me the position that I have now, which is to support trans rights in an unambiguous fashion. Now, that being said here, I think it is important to notice that there are certain individuals that give people a pretty bad name. It's what I like to call the Eric Cartman effect. For those of you who don't know, the Eric Cartman effect is basically the idea, the notion that if you're going to set something up politically and socially as a right, then you should elucidate those points at a particular fashion in which it's not going to be taken advantage of by the Eric Cartmans in the world. That is important to do. That is important to have there, because you don't want malicious actors coming onto the trans scene and, claiming that they're trans either for clout, for attention, or for, shall we say, that are not exactly the most mentally stable and could probably cause an incident that would make it be pretty bad. Now, that's not to say that this is a regular thing. This is obviously a rare thing to happen, okay? So it's not something that you should be overtly worried about. But in any political and social issue involving either identity or any kind of politicking involving social politics, I think it's important to recognize the fact that there are going to be malicious people that will take advantage of the situation for their own personal, social, and even, in some cases, economic gains. So, yeah. Keep adjusting my little thing there. So, yeah. I think it's important to recognize that the chuds, and I'll refer to them as chuds on the internet because they're extreme conservatives. I mean, there's no real way in which I could go ahead and say that they aren't really going to be chuds or anything along those lines. So, yeah, I mean, what is exactly the point of me, being against trans rights? There isn't really any. I don't have any innate bigotry. I don't have any innate fear of trans people. The only thing I would say is probably more or less that I'm not attracted to trans women. Like, if you tell me you're trans and you're a woman, then I'm probably not going to be physically attracted to you. It's just a thing. So, yeah, that's just all there is to say on the topic. Not much to really go about. And just to give you guys a little treat here, here's my kitty sleeping in his bed. He's just sleeping. Look at that little kitty. So cute. Like and subscribe for the kitty.